Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the CANZUK Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel, as always, and we've also got co-host Laurence.
Hello.
You can follow me at Daniel_TBCC on Twitter, and you can also find Laurence. Where can they find you on Twitter?
Laurence_TBCC.
Amazing, incredible stuff.
Can I just say, can we take a minute to appreciate that intro? That is quite a good beat in it.
Appreciate what? You froze them. Do you want to say that again?
Have I froze now? I can't do that too.
You're staying still now.
I said, let's take a minute to take that intro music because it is quite good, isn't it? It's like...
Down. Yeah, I like it. It's free. It's copyright free. If you want to find out about the artist, it's all in the description below. Mad respect to the artist because putting up that kind of music, that kind of quality of music for no charge, for no royalties. It's amazing. Absolutely splendid.
People like us can use it and rock out to it.
Splendid. Yeah. I don't know if anyone said splendid to a rock song before, but I just did. So yeah, this is going to be a short open close.
I can imagine you at a rock song.
Splendid. Rock
this
on.
Is splendid. Drinking your cup of tea.
Yeah.
Whatever everybody else in that country.
What a nightmare. As I was saying, this is going to be a quick open and close because we got a great guest on and it was a very, very long interview. But when I say very, very long, I don't mean that in a bad sense. It was fantastic. It was a great interview again. And it'd be too long of an episode if we did a very long open and close. So we'll skip straight to it. I'm just going to say two quick things actually. The petition, if you're a UK resident, there is now a petition to sign to try and encourage the government to bring CANZUK into fruition. The link for that is down in the description below. And as I repeat, you have to be a UK resident to sign that. We've also now got a website, which is CANZUKmovement.com. That should have just popped up on the screen for you guys. And basically, that website is going to be where we post articles. We've got some great article writers. It's going to be news. It's going to be news about CANZUK, about the countries, information about CANZUK. You'll be able to find our podcasts on there as well and watch them straight from the website. Find out more about us, find more about the team. It's going to be fantastic. We'll put updates on there as well as social media.
Did you manage to squeeze my picture just so I don't look too square now?
No, we're going to leave it as it is for now.
I was going to think
until we can meet up and do a nice studio picture, it's going to stay like that. But yeah,
I look like this.
Going to be. Look, they can see it for themselves once they just click on it on the link in the description and see the site. We're going to do a little bit of a plug though. On there. There's the option to subscribe, whatever amount you feel is acceptable. If you want to help increase the quality of our content and increase the quantity of our content, just feel free to do that. Obviously, we're not going to plug ourselves loads, but that is just a small little bit. So with that out the way, should we move on to our guest?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's acceptable to you?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let's move on. Hello, and today we got a Canadian Conservative MP for Parry Sound. I'm not going to pronounce that right. Muskoka, and
Muskoka.
Parry Sound and Muskoka, and former Mayor of Huntsville, Scott Aitchison. Welcome and thank you for coming on our podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're going to start straight away with the very first question, which is, of course, do you support CANZ UK and why?
Well, I do support CANZUK, and there's a litany of reasons why, but I can start with, the concept of free movement of people amongst our countries. I think that's I think it's a really popular thing, particularly with young people. I think about places in Canada like Whistler, for example, that you go there and it's full of Australians and Kiwis, and these young people like to move around, and I think that the greater freedom for them to do that is a good thing. I think that that we have so much in common, these four countries, where we have a very similar common law system, and we all share a head of state, and in terms of our GDP, we're all very similar in terms of the level of income that each family has in each of those countries. There's so many similarities. We tend to be fairly in lockstep when it comes to international issues, and we vote together most often at the UN, for example, with so much in common. I think presents a real opportunity for us to have a bigger voice and a more principled voice in the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think CANZUK is fantasy, or do you reckon it could be something that comes to fruition?
Oh, good question.
I think it could come to fruition. I think that there's a strong level of interest in all four countries, and as I mentioned before, I think young people are particularly excited about it. In Canada, currently at the political level, it really only seems to be conservatives that are particularly interested in this, but I think it will grow just because there's really not much you can say negative about it. I think it just makes such common sense.
Yeah, because that's one of the things we've picked up on, is that on a public level, it's supported from all political spectrums. However, when it comes to the political level, when it comes to politicians, it seems to be only, for Canada, for example, it seems to be only the Conservatives that are interested in it, and the Liberals are not. Do you reckon it would take a government shift to be able to get CANZUK accepted in Canada? Or do you reckon the current government could potentially do it?
Yeah, I think it would require. I think in the current situation in Canada, I think it would require a change in government, just because it's not a priority for the current government. It certainly is a priority for our leader, Aaron O'Toole. He's been a big believer in this CANZUK movement for a long time, long before he became leader of our party. That said, nothing's impossible. I mean, I think it's building momentum in all four countries, and sometimes governments catch on based on the interest of the public at large, and that could very well happen with the current government.
Yeah, obviously, you're very busy in what you currently do. How do you plan on campaigning for CANZUK?
Well, I guess in part we're doing it right now. This is the kind of thing where being out there talking to people. We're trying to set up actually a number of meetings now with university clubs and that kind of thing. Just talking about it more. I've written at least one column on the topic, and I know other MPs have done so as well. So we just keep talking about it, and of course not just talking about it in Canada, but talking with leaders in all four countries about what they think about the idea, what steps they think we should take next. In many ways, the model exists already, really, in terms of what exists between Australia and New Zealand with the Trans-Tasman Travel Agreement, the Closer Economic Relations Agreement. It wouldn't be all that complicated to expand it to include Canada and the UK.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So we got a few questions from our viewers, and the first question is: how will CANZUK work together to combat strategic threats such as China, Russia, and Iran? So I've kind of thrown you in the deep end there, but do you have some knowledge on how this might work?
Well, as I've told many people when I do these meetings, I'm just an old mayor from Huntsville, small town Huntsville. I'm still learning. I'm still learning the ropes at the federal level and truly the international level. But I think it certainly is possible, particularly when you put it into the context of trade. All four CANZUK countries, when you put them together, would be a major trading bloc. It would be the third biggest in the world, and with And with that, I mean, I think there's no doubt that the Chinese government is interested in trade, and that's what they seem to respond to best. So I just think that as a stronger voice collectively, we have an opportunity, not not just to push our weight around, but to lead by example. You know, all four countries are vibrant liberal democracies, and leading by example, I've always believed is the most effective way to do that. So I think that working together is always better, um, and there's no doubt in my mind that it would help. You know, we're also part of we're 4/5 of the Five Eyes. So I think being aligned with the Americans as well, certainly helps. And if we can more coordinate our efforts to make sure that as liberal democracies, we engage with China in a responsible way that sets the right example, but doesn't let them basically bully us and push us around, which currently seems to be their modus operandi.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point about how we don't want to use it as a way to bully other countries into submission. It's the case of just all being able to stick together, look out for each other, and help each other.
Yeah, and in fact, I would go one step farther. Moving beyond the questions of some of the more belligerent countries in the world right now, I would take this a step farther. That a CANZUK arrangement actually has, I think, a really strong potential to help refocus the leading economies of the Commonwealth on the Commonwealth. I see this as a real opportunity to focus our efforts, as as a Commonwealth, to build up and support and lift up all the other member Commonwealth nations that are struggling, that have developing economies. I think the Commonwealth is a brilliant concept, and I think that it started out with great fanfare, but there's less and less interest in it, it seems. And I think that if it is to be a brotherhood, then we need to take care of each other. And I think that this actually has the potential to help us refocus and support those Commonwealth members that need our help.
So you think the Commonwealth could all be part of it as well, then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in many ways, it forms the foundation of why we would begin talking to each other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are currently members of the Commonwealth, all four of us, and I think that this would help sharpen the focus and get us back to taking care of each other and supporting those Commonwealth countries.
Yeah, I think it could be very beneficial for a whole range of countries. So I think people forget just how many countries there are in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
I've just got up. There are 54 countries currently in the Commonwealth, spread across Africa, Asia, the Americas, Europe, and the Pacific. So there's a lot of countries that could also benefit from CANZUK, not just the ones that are in the name.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've got another question, haven't we?
Yes, we do. Yeah, no, you go on. You have your turn.
I get a word in edgeways here now.
Yeah.
So this question, I think it's come from social media. It says, many people think CANZ UK is racist. Do you or do you not? And do you think this is the case?
Well, I absolutely do not think it is racist. I think to suggest otherwise is refusing to recognize the facts.
Yeah.
These four countries are among the most diverse countries in the world. You look at Canada; it is a nation of immigrants, as is Australia, as is New Zealand, and the UK is one of the most culturally diverse countries on the planet.
Yeah,
I think that I don't know how you could call that racist. It's not about English speakers in Canada. We're not just English speakers. There's a huge French population here, and there's dozens and dozens of other languages that are the primary language of the citizens. So, and I know it's the same in all the other three countries as well. So, this is about culturally diverse nations coming together because they have, a shared vision, shared goals, and very similar, legal structures and sort of cultural structures. There's nothing racist about that. We welcome immigrants from all over the world.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are nations of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also mentioned that parts of the Commonwealth are from all over the world is another example of how it's not racist, because it will be helping literally anyone on the planet.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we're going to touch on obviously one of the countries of CANZUK UK is obviously not too what's the word? How shall I put it? Getting closer to China.
New Zealand.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind the trading relationship that New Zealand has with China. It's a major customer of theirs, and again, I think that this is an important, very important concept to keep in mind, that engaging with China in a productive way is important, and perhaps there are things for the rest of us to learn from how New Zealand is dealing with China. And so, by working together, I think that we can learn from each other too.
Nice. What I was going to say was another good example of how it's not racist. I actually did say that, didn't I? I did say that. So completely ignore that. As a member of the Committee of the Canadian Heritage, how do you think CANZUK plays into that?
Well, I'm not entirely sure it does play into that right now. We are well, I'll talk to you a little bit about what we're doing at the minute. The Heritage Committee right now, we're reviewing something called Bill C-10, which is the current government's proposed legislation to level the playing field between the internet streaming giants and the traditional Canadian broadcasters. So for people who are less familiar with the Canadian cultural scene, in many ways, Canada has been tremendously advantaged by being a direct neighbor and trading partner and close friend of the United States. With that, though, comes, of course, probably the most significant cultural machine on the planet in the United States. I mean, their film and television industry is gargantuan, and so since the beginning of broadcasting times, Canada has had legislation to make an effort to ensure that Canadian voices get heard in this great sea of American voices. It's not that we don't like to hear the American voices, of course we do, and Canadians consume American content, with great fervor. We love it, but it's important to make sure that that Canadian voices are not lost in all of this. And so, of course, the internet has changed everything. And ensuring that Canadians still have access to Canadian stories, ensuring that we protect access to local news. Our publishing industry is important, and we need to make sure that it thrives as well. So in the context of being a very close neighbor and really much in the orbit of this American cultural machine, this American cultural juggernaut, I would say. That's what we're trying to deal with now, because of course the internet has changed everything. So of course, in the mix of all of that is, we always need to make sure that we are protecting the fundamental freedoms of Canadians for their right to free speech and expression, freedom of thought. And so we're battling right now a little bit about the details of the wording on Bill C-10, about making sure that we don't subject Canadians who post their videos and pictures and comments online, so that they're not subject to regulations from the Canadian Radio Television Communications. It's called the CRTC. It's the regulatory authority we have here. Some faceless bureaucrat in the bowels of the CRTC can't tell you that no, you can't post that because we don't like it. So we're trying to balance that and make sure that freedom of expression is protected, but the internet streaming giants pay their fair share and contribute to a vibrant Canadian culture too.
So is that a case of, if they Well, if someone was trying to say, yeah, we really need more Canadian-based TV and film, would that then potentially breach the rule of, as you were saying?
Yeah. So, well, the way it works here now is that the traditional broadcasters, so television, for example,
Mhm.
they are required to contribute a percentage of their gross profits to something called the Canadian Media Fund, which is then distributed back to help fund the production of Canadian films and television, that kind of
Oh,
thing.
wow.
And so right now, of course, the regulations and the rules and the fees and everything like that that traditional broadcasters are subject to are actually a bit like a millstone around their neck, because of course the traditional broadcasting medium is fading away. Even the Canadian Media Fund has pointed out that their revenues are dropping every year because of
Yeah.
course the revenues of the traditional broadcasters are dropping. So this is an effort to make sure that the Netflix, in Canada we have something called Crave, Prime, all these Disney, all these big internet streaming giants, that they contribute as well. That they make sure that Canadian stories are discoverable, so a little more prominently displayed maybe on their home pages, so that
Mhm.
they are that they're seen as an option, right away when somebody logs into
Yeah.
Netflix in Canada. So that's what we're trying to do, and trying to strike that balance by making sure that Canadians still have choice, because
Yeah.
choice is fundamental here as well, but also ensuring that prominent amongst their choices is Canadian stories too.
So it's kind of incentivizing to get the Canadian stories as well.
Yeah, incentivizes, but the devil, as they say, is always in the details. And so there's a lot of regulation as well. And so we're also trying to balance the importance of making sure that elected representatives of the people in the House of Commons,
Mhm.
um, have a role in ensuring that those freedom of expression and choice and those rights are protected, and not just passing everything off to the regulators, the bureaucrats, to be the determinants of what's acceptable online and what Canadians get to choose. So this is an important part of making sure Canadians have their voice as well.
Do you have a bit of a problem with that in Canada at the moment then, with limiting voices due to potential offence?
Yeah, not yet. We are a little worried about what they're some of the things they're proposing, but
Yeah.
again, I think that Canada is a very engaged country. If people feel like their rights are being infringed upon, they're going to speak up, and so we're encouraging Canadians to speak up, take an interest in this bill and some of the changes. This is the other thing. The bill, when it was first presented in the House of Commons, Conservatives were pretty much in support of it. We agreed with the importance of trying to level that playing field. Um, and there was a specific clause in the document, in the bill, that actually ensured that user generated content was excluded.
Mhm.
And now the Liberals, the governing party, has actually passed an amendment at committee to their own legislation to pull out that protection. And they argue that it is somewhere else in the bill, but it's a little bit different. And the subtleties of these things, as I say, is where you can get caught up, and that's what
Yeah.
we're trying to make sure we're not making a mistake with this.
So if that's not in there, what could that mean? What could happen?
Well, it's section 4.1, and so
Yeah.
effectively what it could mean is that the regulatory authority could, instead of regulating individual Canadians, you could go through the programs they use. So instead of regulating what
Oh,
I post
wow.
on YouTube, they could regulate YouTube with what I post.
Yeah.
So again, you're trying to find a balance there too, and
Yeah.
make sure that YouTube is following the rules, but at the same time, um, it's a slippery slope, and you've got to be very careful to make sure that you're not
Mm.
limiting Canadians' freedom through the back door. And
Yeah.
that's what we're I shouldn't say that's all we're debating. That's what we're debating. We think it's absolutely fundamental to our democracy, to our freedoms, that
Yeah.
we hold very dear, as I know all the other CANZUK countries do too.
Yeah, because that's one of the things is in the CANZUK countries, all the countries are free and they're able to say kind of what they want, do what they want, within reason, of course.
I was going to say.
Yeah, within reason. And you don't see that all over the world. So you can, people forget that in our countries, you can criticize the government. If you don't like them, you're free to tell them. In many other countries across the world, if you criticize the government, you could be locked up or killed.
Listen, I would argue that in fact, it's crucial for people to criticize the government. Some people think that debate is nasty and not nice and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't need to be. But we need to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. We need to be able to challenge our leaders. That is absolutely fundamental to making sure that we get the best decisions and that we get the country and the society that we want. The free expression of ideas is important. That said, like you said, within reason, you should be able to say what you want in a free society. We have, legislation in place in Canada to deal with things like hate speech and inciting hatred. That's obviously we all stand against that. But we this is the point, making sure that people are free to say something, even that I might disagree with what somebody says about me, but at the same time, I will always defend their right to challenge me and tell me that I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If everyone's forced to agree with you, you don't learn from mistakes. You don't learn potentially what could be the best way to do something.
Yeah, it's true.
So I think that's definitely something to take away from that. And I was going to say, with regarding the heritage, does it have any involvement with the First Nations people of Canada, or is it solely to do with the whole country as a whole?
Yeah, no, there are absolutely, and that's one of the things I actually really like about the bill, that it actually speaks direct to a very long and frankly too long process of reconciliation that we are currently engaged in Canada with First Nations peoples. It speaks in a number of different clauses the importance of not just ensuring English and French language, but First Nations languages, and supporting the production and the sharing of First Nation stories, and making sure that those are accessible as well. Because if we're worried about Canada getting drowned out within the big context of this media world, First Nations stories and First Nations culture, for decades in this country, we tried to destroy it, and now we're trying to make sure that we bring it back and incentivize First Nations culture, and make sure that it's revived, I guess, is probably the best way to say that. And so there are many points within the bill that speak to that specifically, which is great. It's very important.
What I find interesting is over here, we've done something similar with the way that obviously TVs, also it's not just film, TV's ratings are going lower because more people just watching a streaming service, because you can have whatever you want on demand. There's a thing now called BritBox, which is British TV. So it's loads of TV shows that have been created. I think it's got films on as well. Loads of TV shows and films that have been created in Britain, based in Britain. So just so that it doesn't get drowned out because of, like you're saying, Netflix, various other streaming services, they just have mainly a lot of stuff from the giant that is America. So they put out so much TV.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think I should also say that I don't think that, the Netflixes of the world, the Disneys, all these streaming giants, I don't think they're bad. I think that they're going through this process now, as are, social media sites like Facebook, and, they're going through this process with a lot of different countries right now. And Canada just happens to be one of them.
Yep.
But, I think that Netflix is, for the most part, a fairly honest player in all of these discussions, and they're happy to work with us. But we got to know what we want. We've got to know what's reasonable to request, and make sure that while we're promoting the cultures of our own countries and our own histories, that we ensure that that choice is still there for for all citizens.
Do you have something similar to BritBox? Because I've just realized, it's only happened recently, but Amazon Prime has now got BritBox on there. So it's more accessible to loads of people. You don't have to get a separate subscription. Do you have something similar to like CanBox?
I assume we do.
Yeah.
Bell Canada, which is probably the biggest and largest player in the Canadian ecosystem, has an online streaming service called Crave, which I guess might be kind of similar. Again, you're speaking to someone who never dreamt that he would be as technologically challenged as I've become, but and I am when it comes to the various different mediums, I am I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. So I am quite sure that we have something, and I know in my conversations with some of the traditional broadcasters and the cable delivery companies that they are gradually transitioning away from traditional broadcasting onto online forums, and it sounds to me like what you've described with BritBox is actually kind of what they will come up with, where they bundle the various different streaming options together in a package. And so I think that will happen here as well, or it's happening now. And that's great. I think, technology is a great thing because it creates new opportunities, and that's a fantastic thing. But again, it's all about just striking that balance to make sure that, we're not gobbled up by our good friends down south.
Yeah.
So
carry on, Laurence.
I was just going to say, slightly off topic. Obviously, we're talking about obviously the big streaming companies like that. Obviously, we're having the same situation here in England with things like Amazon, with sort of shops and things closing down because the big giants. Are you experiencing that sort of in Canada as well? Whereas we're seeing big high street chains just not being able to survive because they can't compete with things like Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. Competition. I believe that competition is a good thing, but again, when it comes to this issue of the technology of broadcasting, the internet has changed so dramatically, and people might not forgive me for saying this, but the traditional television model, the traditional broadcasting model, is dying.
Yeah,
and I don't think that sweet little Canada can put any law in place that's going to stop that from happening.
No.
Frankly, nor should we. No. Those kind of technological advances are important. There's nothing wrong with them. But at the same time, we need to make sure that smaller countries like Canada have an opportunity to get caught up to some of these innovations, just to make sure that while we're transitioning to new technology, which many Canadian corporations are doing now, that we don't get lost in the mix, and that Canadians don't lose access to their Canadian cultural stories.
A lot of people are moving now to new media, which is YouTube. There's a lot of people turn to YouTube to get their news daily. They turn to YouTube to watch their shows, etc., etc.
To watch this show, obviously.
Yeah, to watch this shows on YouTube as well. It's kind of, Laurence said about the effect that companies such as Amazon has on shops as well. Do you see that as a bad thing though? Because we're losing in England, we're losing our high streets. Shops just cannot compete with the prices of Amazon.
Sorry, and that's probably what you actually asked me, Lance. You cut out a little bit there, but it's a very good point. We here in Canada, we've been in lockdown for so long, in and out of lockdowns. I'll resist the partisan urge to slag the Trudeau government for being so slow at getting vaccines to us, but many of those online shopping giants have actually been have been the way that Canadians have been able to shop in the last year, and so they're important. But at the same time, I come from a small town, Huntsville. Huntsville's a little town of 20,000 permanent residents. Wow. It's got a lot of summer residents for people from Toronto. We're about 2 hours north of Toronto, and so that population balloons to probably 40,000 in the summer. Well, our little main street on Huntsville is, a lot of shops and boutiques and very gifty type stuff. It's important to preserve,
Yeah.
the downtown cores of our communities. And, we are always, 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 always encouraging people to shop local. I think there's a role to play for these online giants, but um, Amazon is not sponsoring your kid's hockey team or
No.
the baseball team, right? Or the soccer team or football, as you would call it, I guess. So, we this is important. We need to keep caring for each other. And that means, shopping local as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and I think I'm just as guilty as buying stuff on Amazon Prime just because I can click and have it the next day. But realistically, I could probably wait to the weekend and go down to my local shop and buy it. And even if I don't know, even if it's £1 more expensive, at least I'm giving back to the local economy, aren't I? So yeah,
Well,
but sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, like Scott just said, it's the local businesses that end up sponsoring kids' teams and stuff like that. I remember my as a child when I was playing football, we were sponsored by a Chinese takeaway that was local. And it's I think without them, I think the club would have really struggled. So it is about helping out the people that will in turn help you out potentially in the future.
And it's local jobs as well, isn't it? It's local jobs. If those shops are shutting down, then especially if there's not any Amazon places to work locally, you're going to lose those jobs. So, talking of talking of Huntsville, actually. So obviously, you're obviously an MP now. How are you finding it as compared to your previous role as the mayor?
Well, I keep telling myself that because of COVID and the lockdowns, I still don't really know what it's like to be a member of Parliament. I'm sitting at my home office. You'll see, with Her Majesty staring over my shoulder. But it's a very different gig. There's no question about that. When you're the mayor, particularly the mayor of a smaller community, but mayors are in the business of getting things done. They fix problems. They're very much close to the ground. I was born and raised in Huntsville. Everybody knows who you are, especially when you're the mayor and you grew up in town. People stop you on the street and they, raise issues with you and you can fix them. Being a member of Parliament, of course, there's 338 of us. You're not dealing with things like, ditches and potholes. You're dealing with questions of freedom of expression. And so in many ways, it's not as sort of directly linked to the day-to-day issues that people face, but it is fundamentally important to people's daily lives. So I would say the transition has been actually difficult. There were many times over the last year and a half or so where I actually wondered if I'd made a mistake because I really missed being the mayor. And part of that, in full disclosure, is it's fun being the boss and not as much fun being a cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
That said, I also know that when I was first elected to Huntsville Town Council and to the regional council, we have a 2-tier municipal system. I was 21 years old. I was a kid.
Wow.
And back then I thought, how the hell do you get anything done around here? This place is ridiculous. But I stuck it out. I learned. I got to understand the processes, and actually built a very productive career as a municipal politician, getting things done by learning how it's done. So I would say that part of it is I need to stick it out, and I feel like I'm making some progress in some areas. And getting to know my colleagues, that's another big important piece of this. Things are fixed because of relationships, right? I mean, you get to know the minister of whoever, or the leader of this, or bureaucrats in that department, having conversations and just chatting. That's how you get things done. And without being in Ottawa, really ever, I haven't spent very much time there yet, you don't have an opportunity to get to know people. You don't have an opportunity to build those relationships. And so I would say it's been a really slow start for me. But I know that this too shall pass. I will get smarter. What are they? Fingers crossed. I will get smarter, more experience in the process, build the relationships that I think are important on Parliament Hill. because ultimately, I'm doing this because I want to make the lives better of my constituents. And there's so many important issues. People think, in Canada, housing is becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger issue. Housing's always been an issue in this country, but it's particularly bad now because the housing prices have just skyrocketed. And young families just starting out, they have no hope of trying to buy a home, even in small communities. Like, we always thought it was a big issue in cities. It's a big issue in small rural communities as well. It's a crisis, actually. And we've got so much work to do, and this is part of my challenge. I mean, this is one of the reasons we decided to make this move, because all the things I was doing as mayor, we'd done a lot. We'd given land to developers with agreements that they keep the rents in the new building at what's deemed affordable rents for people that struggle. We waived all the municipal fees. We made it cheaper for them to build. And I feel like, we made sort of 2 steps forward while I was mayor. And I thought, if I get to the federal government, I know I can secure more federal tax dollars that we can use to leverage the private sector investment. And now, a year and a half into being a member of parliament, I feel like we've taken 3 or 4 steps back. It's worse now than it was before I left the mayor's office. So there's a lot of work to do. I just don't believe that, you can expect anybody in our society to fully realize their potential or self-actualize without at least a roof over their head, at least a safe place to call home. And that's where it starts. So, I work on it every day, and I wish I could snap my fingers. But again, you don't give up the good fight, because we got to make progress on this to help people.
Yeah, we're in a very similar position where the house is skyrocketing in price, and it's getting much harder to be able to buy a home because of it. Just so every town's more becoming a commuter town to London all the time, and it's becoming a bit of an issue. That's when the prices skyrocket. Whereas up in the north side of England, you can get, I think I was looking at, so depending on where you are in the south, you can get maybe a 3-4 bedroom home in the north for the price of a two maybe 3 bedroom down in the south. It's crazy. You get so much more up there.
Well, this is one of the other things. A similar thing is happening in Canada. For a country the size of Canada, most people probably don't realize that it's one of the most urbanized countries in the world. The vast majority of Canadians live in urban areas, not in the rural area. But it's one of the other major issues we face here is connectivity, internet connectivity. I have 2 different internet service providers in my home, and they're both shit. It's a miracle that we're able to talk right now. But I'm hopeful.
I can see you keep dropping out. Your video keeps dropping out.
I didn't want to see anything, but
yeah. Well, there you go. But I'm hopeful that by making improvements to rural broadband internet accessibility, making it affordable, that it will provide Canadians an opportunity to live, maybe not in downtown Toronto, but still be able to work there. That's one of the things that maybe COVID has taught us, that so many people are working from home. Maybe they don't have to live in downtown Toronto. Maybe they can live in a rural community and raise their family, and a much different experience. Yeah, you just need good internet to make it happen.
Well, have you been following what Elon Musk with SpaceX is doing with their internet providing service?
Absolutely. I signed up. I paid my $129, and I am waiting with bated breath to put the receiving equipment here.
It looks phenomenal.
It looks phenomenal, and but this is one of the other issues, right? I mean, they pay me a lot of money to be a member of parliament, and I can afford to pay the startup cost. It'll cost about $800 to get started with SpaceX. The vast majority of families that live in my area, my riding, my constituency, they can't afford that.
No.
That's insane.
But the idea is the price will come down, but at the start,
and that's my point. Yeah. The more of us that invest in it now, I'm also thinking too that, the federal government here announced, huge dollars to help expand rural internet accessibility. That maybe, part of that fund gets used to help offset those startup costs for using
it'd be a great
SpaceX.
idea.
Maybe that's one of the things we do.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I also think incentivizing companies, as you said, with building homes with low rent so that people can afford it, and by reducing the amount they got to pay to be on the land or the building costs, is a fantastic way of incentivizing companies to reduce the rent because they don't need it so high to offset their profits.
Yeah, to me it's the most, it's a conservative way of getting things done by instead of the government being all things to all people and doing everything and owning your house, by incentivizing the private sector investment, you're actually stimulating the economy and building GDP growth as well.
Jobs.
That generates more tax revenue, more jobs. It's a far more effective and a far more it's just such a better way of getting things done faster. Let's not kid ourselves. The private sector can build a house far faster than some bureaucracy ever could, right?
And usually
so
cheaper
that's
as
why
well.
it's important to do that. Yeah.
So I think I don't understand why people think that high tax is the way to resolve things, when actually, if you incentivize businesses, high tax can just push businesses away. Whereas if you incentivize businesses, you make stuff cheaper for them. Maybe you reduce the amount of tax they have to pay for a set amount of time if they hit their goals for amount of affordable homes. That could actually help people instead of taxing loads and trying to give free money to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tax is a reality. I'm happy and proud to pay my taxes. I'm happy to do that. But at the same time, it should be fair taxation.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
Taxation that gets too high, actually stifles investment.
Yep.
It's very counterproductive. And some of my friends on the left don't quite get that.
No. Well, if you've got the money, people just move abroad. And they don't have to pay the tax. It doesn't actually help in any way. I don't see how it could possibly help.
Or they store their money abroad, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's different. That's a little bit shady, that is.
But absolutely. I mean, I'm about tax fairness, and people, Canadians hiding their money offshore, that shouldn't be allowed either.
No, absolutely not. You mentioned that you first got elected. I think it was first elected, wasn't it? As when you were 21. What made you want to get into it so young?
Massive ego. I'm kidding.
Sure.
Yeah, that's part of it, I guess. Any politician who tells you they don't have an ego is lying to you. But I was born and raised in Huntsville. Interestingly enough, I was born into a Jehovah's Witness family, so I wasn't really supposed to be interested in politics. But I was stubborn and curious and always fascinated by what was going on in my community. And I was proud of my community. I always wanted to make it better. And I wasn't going to run. I mean, honestly, I was 21 years old. I'd taken a year off of university just to work and save up some money because I was worried about having huge student debts when I left school. And somebody, actually, it was a former mayor who was my hero and also principal of our local high school who convinced me to run. And I told him, well, I got to go back to school. He says, he says to me, you're not going to win. You never win the first time. But he said, you got to run. He said, you'll lose. And then 3 years later, when the next election comes around, you run again and people will know who you are. And then you'll win. And I thought, well, my hero, Mr. Clark, has told me I got to do this, so I'll do it. We spent, I think, a grand total of $300 on the campaign.
Wow. That's not a lot when it comes to it, is it? That doesn't get you much.
It's not a lot. I think the limit was $11,000 to spend on the campaign. Wow. But I just spoke from my heart about the importance of fighting for Huntsville and making it the best place to be, and wanting to be a part of making it better. And the one thing I'll say about Jehovah's Witnesses is, of course, they're knocking on your doors all the time. So they invest great effort in training people to be excellent communicators, because they're on your doorstep. They're on your doorstep on Saturday morning, trying to convince you of something. And so I was a fairly effective communicator at 21, and I think that that served me well, because I was up against a slate of 12 or 13 candidates, and it was all, old guy, which is me now. But and then this kid who actually spoke very well, and people were kind of like,
Yeah.
wow. I get there were 3 seats available for this election, and I came third by the skin of my teeth.
Really?
Because enough people said, well, we've got, at the time it was, I think, Len Clark, who was a well-known man in town and one of my favorite people to this day. Franny Coleman, who I still adore to death. She's just been involved in everything. And I think people said, well, I really want Len there and I really want Fran, and I'm going to give that kid a try. And that's kind of how I won. Wow. And that's kind of where it all started for me.
Was that a paid role?
Just barely. They call it an honorarium on purpose. Yeah. It was very little. You don't do this to get rich. That's for sure.
No, but so that's quite interesting. So you're more pushed into it, and then discovered you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I think I'd always dreamed that I would. I just didn't. I guess probably in full disclosure, if I'm being really honest with myself, I was probably a little bit afraid to run, right? Because I didn't have any idea what I was doing. But it was once again this principal and leader in my life who taught me a lot. Who basically encouraged me to put my fears aside and. Without any risk, there's no reward. So you got to take a leap, and I did. And I'll tell you, so that guy Terry Clark, he was the principal of high school. I was president of Students' Council, and I learned so much from him in those years about leadership and what that means. He had been the mayor of Huntsville. And he ran federally after he finished up his term as mayor. Right after he lost that election. He ran for the Conservatives, but it was when Jean Chrétien was elected and the Conservatives were reduced to 2 seats. Wow. And so when I ran and won the election federally, I was the first former mayor of Huntsville to win the seat federally. Since 1901. Wow. And we had my final council meeting was a really special event. We invited all living former mayors and a number of my other mayor colleagues from the region all came to the meeting, and council, it was so lovely. They were, I was going to be missed and all that kind of stuff. And Terry, who wasn't well, did connect with me before the meeting, and he had tears in his eyes. He was so proud of me. He said, wow. He watched me grow up, and now this is what I'm doing. And it was so it was really special. And he's meant a lot to me over the years, and he continues to.
So it's you really obviously. Nice I was going to say, you obviously so young when you got into it. What advice would you have to young people who want to get into politics?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Absolutely. And I guess this is the thing. I actually stood up in the House of Commons to talk to speak to a piece of legislation, and it was, again, full disclosure. I started off by saying, I'm chubby middle-aged white guy now, but when I started, I was a kid and I didn't know anything. I had no concept of the need that existed in my community. I didn't know about housing issues. I didn't know about, so many social ailments that existed in what I thought was my perfect little town. And I learned a lot, especially in that first year. It was a real eye-opener. And it changed my opinions on a lot of different things. Because I learned on the job, and it was a tremendous opportunity, and so that would be my advice to young people. If you feel like you're not experienced enough, or you haven't lived enough life, that doesn't matter. We need all perspectives at the table. We need all voices at the table, and young people. What we're leaving you. You should have a say in what we're doing, the things we're screwing up, and the things that we're doing right. So just do it. Just get involved. Just be a part of it.
I think that's really good advice, to be honest. It's what would you say to people that are a bit hesitant because they might lose?
Yeah, sometimes you lose, but again, you learn from the failures. You learn from every experience, and and running. Just being involved in a campaign, you learn an awful lot. I've talked to, every one of my opponents in the last federal election, we built pretty great relationships. I mean, it was not a nasty, hostile thing. That's certainly not my style. It certainly wasn't theirs. The NDP candidate. Now, this is like the left-wing party. We don't really have lots in common. But that candidate, Tom Young, lovely guy. Like we've just become friends, and we still chat regularly. We talk about issues. We talk,
That's what you want in politics.
At the end of the day, we're all just people looking to make a difference and to do things better. And it's important to have all those voices at the table to make sure that we get the best decisions. And it's not just about political perspectives. It's about making sure that we have the perspectives of different age groups, different cultural groups, different sexes. Everybody needs to be at that table. And so, in many ways, I guess I'm a dinosaur. I should go away, and we should let other young people come in.
You need the experience and the knowledge there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Experience helps. There's no question about it. But I'll tell you, my experience has taught me that it's important to nurture the young people to get into politics as well.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends actually now, a new member of parliament, is the youngest member of parliament, Eric Malillo from Kenora. He was 21 when he got elected. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I was 21 when I got elected, not to parliament though. Anyhow, we've become quite close just because I see a great future for him, and I want to encourage him, and, I'll be, dead and gone, and he'll be the prime minister maybe one day. So, you got to support and encourage. So.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? You need the role model, like you said. It was Terry, wasn't it? You need that role model there to learn, because you don't want to go in there and have no idea what to do. You need someone to be able to point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. And Terry was the role model that maybe got me started, I guess, but I've had a lot of role models along the way. There's lots of people that I've looked up to, former mayors, former councillors that I've worked with, former regional chairs, currently lots of members of parliament on all sides of the house that I look up to because, I respect them. I may not agree with everything they say, but I have a lot of respect for them. And there's something to learn from everyone.
I've always wondered, when you get elected, is there some sort of induction, or do they just say, right, here we go, get on with the job? What actually happens when you get elected?
Good luck. There's your constituency.
No, there is an orientation session. And a couple of days after the election, I was in Ottawa to start my orientation. Not many other newly elected MPs were able to get there that quickly, so there wasn't many of us there. And it's interesting. The ones that were there have been the ones that I've sort of remained probably most connected with, actually, just because we were, baptized together, I guess. But yeah, there's an orientation. That said, the orientation scratches the surface of what the gig really is. So there's still reams and reams of stuff for me to learn. So
there's like a handbook, is that it? You can just read through and you're not sure what to do.
Told you everything.
Yes, sort of. Now, the one thing I will say is that and one of the things I didn't realize, I had a bit of an advantage in that I had a lot of municipal experience, so committees and that kind of thing, and the rules of how you work in a committee. Although it's different at the federal level, the fundamentals are the same, right? And some of it I was kind of like, well, this is ridiculous. Why are we talking about this? I mean, I understand committees. I understand how this works. And they said, well, you got to remember that the vast majority of Canadians who become members of parliament, most of them have not had, either provincial or municipal experience. So they've never worked in a structure like this. So I'm like, oh, well, that's good. Again, I learned something new. I was like, well, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. So
what was your first thoughts when you walked through into the House of Commons for the first time?
I was in a bit of awe, I guess. I mean, I think as a kid, I dreamt that I would do this one day. I was really loving what I was doing, and so I'd kind of almost put it out of my head. I wasn't thinking of running.
Yeah.
Our member of parliament at the time was Tony Clement, who I think you've talked to.
Yeah, he was our first guest.
And I didn't think Tony was going anywhere soon, and I just wasn't really thinking about it. And it was. It was a couple of, again, leaders from my life who I'd served with on, Muskoka Regional Council or whatever, that said to me, you got to run. And I said, but I like doing what I'm doing. And I know you said, listen, if you don't do it now, you're getting old. We tend to keep our members of parliament in Parry Sound, Muskoka for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Do you think you might try to do this when you're 65? I'm like, well, probably
It gets
not.
harder,
So,
doesn't it then?
absolutely. And, I think I'd probably feel a lot lazier then. I don't know. But anyhow, so I was almost
Remember that in 20 years. Still there.
cajoled
Everyone
into
goes,
doing it
right,
this
he's
time
lazy
too.
now.
Yeah.
Get him out, he's lazy.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really interesting, the way that it is when you're going round and you're knocking on all the doors, you're talking to people. It's hard work. It's not simple stuff. You can clock up a lot of miles in a day.
Yeah, you can. It can be hard work, but I've been described by some as a raging extrovert. So I really thrive on just getting out and chatting and meeting with people, and and I guess in maybe that way I'm probably a really effective retail politician. I also really love the really nerdy part of it, where you dig down into the policy and analyze it, but. I recharge from being around people, and so I love that, and I miss it. In fact, again, sitting here in this office doing Zoom meetings has sapped a lot of my energy, and it's like so many Canadians. I mean, I don't complain about it just because there are so many Canadians in way worse shape than I am. But this hasn't been fun for anybody, members of parliament either, right? So we need to get the vaccines in our country. We need to get vaccinated. We need to get back to normal and get thriving again. So,
what's going on with your restriction measures? So, I recently saw that Trudeau said, I think it was on the 14th of April, Trudeau claimed, in a defense of keeping the measures in place, he claimed that the UK was going through a third massive wave. Well, we're not. We're one of the lowest cases in Europe. We've got 173 cases per 173 cases per 1 million. And so what's going on there?
Yeah, well, I think that was Trudeau fumbling his deflection. I think he probably regretted saying that right after he said, but Canada is a complex constitutional creation. And so, of course, because of the way our country is structured, healthcare is delivered and the responsibility constitutionally of the provinces. And so, as a result of that, they're the ones that are, injecting people with vaccines. They're the ones that manage hospitals and have to deal with ICU admissions, those kinds of things, and the lack of ventilators. If there was one, there isn't. We're doing okay. But of course, the federal government plays a role in so much as the federal government did the negotiating with these global pharmaceutical companies to secure vaccines to get to the provinces, to get into people's arms. And so the challenge we've had here in Canada is that we just haven't been able to get the vaccines as quickly as some of our partner countries in the G7, for example, or the United States, which is light years ahead of us, or the UK, which is light years ahead of us. There's been a lot of debate about why that is, and there's no question that without the manufacturing capacity or the production capacity in Canada, that's been a problem. But our criticism of the current federal government is that their initial negotiations were with a company called CanSino, which, as you can imagine, is it's overlords of the Chinese government. What brainwave happened in the PMO to make them think that nothing could possibly go wrong when dealing with a Chinese-controlled company when trying to secure vaccines? I don't know, but that was just dumb. And we argued that put us behind everybody else in terms of those negotiations with the AstraZenecas, with the Modernas, with Pfizer, with all these companies. And so, Canada was delayed. And
you'd think people would know not to put all that.
I don't think there was any malice. I don't think there's any malice. I don't. I know that Justin Trudeau and his entire cabinet are desperate to get Canadians vaccines. They want to get open as quickly as possible. I believe that. I just think they're inept. That was stupid.
Like I just said, you learn at a basic stage not to put all your eggs in one basket. You got to have multiple other avenues to go down. It's like it'd be like us starting the podcast and only having one question idea. and then going, where should we go from here? We should and desperately panicking around trying to work out something.
That's normally how we do it, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Conversations that happen organically are always the best, but it's good to have a little preparation. But well, this of course is part of the problem with the Liberals' talking points on this is they keep talking about how Canada will have more doses of vaccines per capita than any other country in the world, and we're like, well, great. We don't have them until next year. What difference does that make? That's just fantastic. A waste of money,
We have more because no other countries need them anymore because they vaccinated everyone.
Exactly.
That's the way it sounds like it's going to work.
Yeah.
Before we go on to our final more personal questions, Laurence, do you have anything you want to ask?
Yeah. Do you know? Okay.
I just said we don't put stuff on the spot, but it turns out we are.
I'm going to save my question for last.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly ask one more. Have you been to UK?
I have. A dear friend of mine, Mike Sutherland, was actually studying. I think he was doing. It's called the Cities program at LSE, London School of Economics. And I made the trip over for a week and visited with Mike and a couple of his friends. And so did a little touring around London. Didn't really get much out of London. I made it to Windsor. As you can tell, I'm a big monarchist. I'm a big fan and fascinated by all these things. And of course, love galleries and all that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of touristy stuff in London and Windsor. And then Mike and I actually did a long weekend. We flew Ryanair again. Marvel at the cheap flights. I mean, to get across Canada, you have to take a second mortgage out on your house. But in the Europe, it's a big deal. Yeah. But we did a long weekend in Berlin, which, again, probably one of my favorite trips ever. Just the intersection of history and culture and architecture, and oh my goodness, it was all fantastic. So my UK/Berlin trip was pretty spectacular. I'd love to spend more time in the UK, actually, but maybe with CANZUK I will.
We'd love to have you. Yeah, I'd love to have you. Actually, one question I did have was, obviously our national sport is football. I believe yours is probably ice hockey, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Ice hockey and lacrosse, actually.
Oh, right, lacrosse.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we had this conversation last week about football. Obviously, we call it football and you call it soccer, I think, don't you?
It's not your first time speaking to a Canadian.
That American.
He's acting like, I've never spoken to someone like this before.
That's that American influence coming back again, right? We call it soccer like the Americans do.
Yeah.
So my question is, obviously, when we watch ice hockey, it seems quite rough. Is it as rough as it is on TV? And have you ever been to a game?
Well, I've been to many games, professional and otherwise, and it's not as rough as it once was. They're constantly making rules to make it less rough and tumble, but yeah, no, it is rough. I always say that hockey is and there'll be lots of folks that might be watching this that will profoundly disagree with me, but I still believe that ice hockey is like the paramount of sports. You have to have skill to maneuver. You have to have skill to make the plays. You're shooting a puck at the end of a stick, and you're doing it all not on your feet. You're doing it on ice skates. You got to put a lot of skills together. To look good on ice skates. And so I just think it is like the absolute peak of sportsmanship, ice hockey.
Can you ice skate then?
Yeah, barely.
No, yeah, same.
Just about.
I'm pretty shaky. Pretty shaky.
How similar is it? Have you ever seen the film, was it Goon?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Is it like that?
No, not quite.
No.
I think there might have been a day when it was a bit like that.
Yeah.
But it's not. No, it's not like that anymore.
Not anymore.
I thought you were going to say the Mighty Ducks when you're talking about a film.
No, I've not seen that one. I've seen
Have
Goon.
You not?
I like Goon, yeah. Whenever I played it, I've never bought the game, but I played the demo. I'd always just smack the puck and I'll just try and start a fight with someone on the game. It's quite funny to watch. Just see them throw down their gloves, and then it amuses me. So we'll just go on to the final personal questions now, if that's all right. Let me just have a look. Laurence, have you got them there?
Yeah, actually, you were mentioning about, obviously, we were talking about Prime and that earlier. What sort of TV shows do you like to watch?
Well, I'm a nerd, so I kind of like I tend to like documentary type stuff. I love historical fiction, that kind of thing. I've watched every episode of The Crown, for example.
That's what I was about to ask.
Love that kind of stuff.
Who's your favorite?
I tend to like series, Oh, Prince Philip for sure.
Yeah, he's a great guy, isn't he?
Yeah,
it's very sad to see what happened.
It's obviously going to be interesting in like season 6 or 7 when obviously Meghan is in it, isn't it?
Oh, Laurence, you can ask a question.
I understand that she won't be in it. They won't go that far.
Really?
Oh, is that right?
Apparently, they're not going that far. No.
Go on, Laurence. You know you want to ask. You know what you want to ask about Harry and Meghan on your opinion for it.
What's the Canada's view then on that situation?
Yeah. There we go.
I think that the views in Canada on that situation are probably as varied as Canada itself. But I will say that's a difficult family dispute that I have no comment on. I'm a big fan of all of them, so hope they work it out.
Yeah, my opinion is that
that's very diplomatic.
Yeah, my opinion is that
I've been in politics a long time. Can you tell?
Yeah. My opinion is that family issues should stay within the family. That's all
Absolutely.
I don't think an opera interview should have happened, but that's my opinion.
Absolutely.
I watched every minute of it because I was.
Yeah, so did I.
There you go.
What do you get up to in your spare time when you're busy all the time?
Well, I love golf. I don't get to play as much as I used to, but I love golf. I love gardening. I'm not that great. My handicap is probably still about a 17 or so.
Not that great. That's pretty good. That's
gone straight off the top of my head.
I play what they call bogey golf.
I'm lucky if I hit under 100. So for me, 17 is great.
I guess breaking 100 is pretty good. At any rate, I also love gardening. I have a nice little house here. I live on the shores of Lake of Bays in Muskoka. It's a beautiful, beautiful lake, and I'm gradually turning this property into my friend Tim Cantillon, who owns Sandhill Nurseries, where I buy my products and stuff, he calls it my own little botanical garden. So I love doing that kind of stuff. I have a little tractor that I bought because I have to snow blow my own laneway in the winter, and so I putter around, and so I love doing that kind of stuff. I also, of course, live on the water, and my nieces and nephew live, about 5-minute walk through the bush, and the younger two particularly love to go tubing. And so it's where you tie a tube to the back of the boat and you drag them around the lake.
Oh, wow.
A little easier than water skiing, but you do turns.
Like a banana boat, I think.
Yeah. Well, kind of like that. Yeah. So they love it. And I love taking them out. They bring me, hours of joy. And of course, it gives us an excuse to go get ice cream afterwards. And as you can tell, I've had my fair share of ice cream. So those are the kinds of things that I love to do.
It's nice to have a little breakaway, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I see you got a lot of books behind you. That's quite a selection. Is there any
some of them, yeah.
Top of your pick?
Well, I have them sort of organized to this direction. Starts with a lot of Winston Churchill, his history of the English-speaking peoples, some biography, and then we get into some more stuff about World War II, and I think I got Tony Blair's book there. Then in the middle, I get into my first love of urban planning and urban design. Lots of books about architecture and that kind of thing, and issues. And then on this side it starts out with Canadian prime ministers, lots of biographies, liberal and conservative, and then down into some more Canadian history, some books about the War of 1812, for example, that kind of thing. I also have a little local history section on Muskoka and Huntsville. I'm actually currently working on my spare time on a book about the history of Huntsville. I'm constantly referring back to books over there as I keep writing. So Yeah.
How far does
And
the
then
history go back?
out in the hallway is all the rest. I have a whole section on American presidents, and a lot of political history and biographies for sure.
Where's your Harry Potter section then? Have you got?
Yeah, I don't have that. That's another full admission. I've never seen a full Harry Potter movie. I've seen parts and bits and pieces, but that's about it. And I've never read the books. I don't read much fiction.
Yeah, you read a lot of, like you said, your favorite TV shows, documentaries. You read a lot of informative stuff.
Trying to learn always.
Yep.
Not to say you can't learn from fiction. Don't get me wrong, but
no. Well, it broadens your creative mind, doesn't it?
That's right.
Do you dabble in architecture then? Because you mentioned architecture.
No, I don't. I'm just not creative enough there. I find it fascinating.
Maybe if you watch some Harry Potter, you would.
It sounds like a challenge, gentlemen.
Yeah, that's where it's going wrong.
Yeah.
Now, Laurence has got a big question to ask.
So we're asking all our guests this, even though I didn't get to ask it last week. So are you a lover or you a hater of Marmite? Please tell me what it is.
I cannot answer because I've never actually had Marmite.
That means no then. That means you're on my side. No.
That can't be yes.
I've heard of it. I don't really know what it is, to be honest with you.
It's disgusting. We're not sponsored by them. Laurence might be trying to get a sponsor from them, but for me, I don't think they like it.
We're having a bit of rivalry going, so I'm trying to get the yes up, and he's trying to get the no up. So I don't think that counts as either, to be fair. So
if you don't have something, if you don't eat it, usually it's because you're staying away from it. So that counts as a no. I don't eat a lot of stuff, and that's because I don't want to, because I probably won't like it. So.
Could I purchase Marmite in Canada? I don't even know where I would.
Yeah, I think it's got a different name, hasn't it?
Is it Vegemite or something? No, I don't know.
No, Australia. You're mixing them all up. You're getting the wrong CANZUK countries.
I'll have to do my research, see if you can buy them in Canada.
Yeah.
I'll start digging around, and I promise you this. Because maybe we'll chat again one day. Well, I'll do that too. But I'll promise you this. I will do my level best to find Marmite, purchase it, and try it. And then you can ask me that question again, I hope, one day.
Yes.
That is a promise. Everyone write that promise down.
Write it down. Down.
And I hope you come back saying no. That'd be perfect. That'd be
okay.
That'd be
we'll see.
Where's the best place for people to follow what you're up to?
Well, they can follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'm on all of those things.
The Twitter one.
He's done it again. He's done it.
Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
There we are.
I also, I post monthly columns on a little thing called Huntsville Doppler on Metroland Media here. It's all online as well. So these are the local newspapers in my writing. So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We greatly appreciate it.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I hope we do it again.
Yeah, I've just seen how long it's been going on for us. We've taken up a lot of your evening.
How long have we been on now?
It's an hour and a quarter.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's a long time. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Guys, thanks very much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
That was a good interview, wasn't it, with Scott?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I didn't realize you're on first name basis, though. It was that good of an interview that you just say his first name and that's it now.
Is that not his name? Are we all formal now?
He is. Yeah, well, I thought we'd just try to be a little bit more formal on the show. But you know what? If you're that pally with him now, that's fine by you.
Am I calling you by your full name now? I don't.
Yes, I think you should. I don't think it's acceptable. I want to hear my full name. My middle name as well, please. And title. I wish I had a title. I'll make you say it. But yeah, it was
Daniel
a great
Mary. I forgot your last name.
Mary?
You wanted your middle name, didn't you?
Yeah, that's certainly not my middle name. As I was saying again, before you cut me off again, fantastic interview. really, really good. We could have stayed in there for ages, and it's great that he wants to come back, carry on the conversation, talk about other topics. I mean, we covered again so many in that interview. I can't even go through it. We covered loads of stuff about CANZUK, trade, defense, Commonwealth countries. We haven't covered that one before. So it was really good, not only just about CANZUK, but it was so much about politics itself, and loads of stuff about him as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One thing I did think though is we're a bit lacking aside in not having the picture of the Queen behind us. It seems to be more and more.
Yeah. Well, we do have the crown. The crown's above me right now.
Well, bad view. Yeah, I suppose you can.
Well, I'm the king, aren't I? So that's why, as we discussed in the last episode, it looks much better on my head.
Yes.
But yeah, it was quite nice to see. He's got a picture of the Queen in his office. Everything was. It was just really good. It was really good. It was another one I've enjoyed, and I think it's going to be really beneficial for people to listen to. Because, like I said, talking about the Commonwealth, I haven't really thought about the impact it would have on the Commonwealth countries as well, and how it would help them. And I think that's a really good way to explain it to people how it's not racist, because it will help countries across the entire globe, in all the continents, except from Arctic and Antarctica. I don't know if it'll help those, but there's no one living there, so so it doesn't matter. But it will help all the other places, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely good to hear different views, isn't it, on it? But yes, it's good.
I think that's a really good way for people to be. I think that when you're trying to explain stuff to people and you want to get people on side, you need good examples to be able to explain why it's not something and why it is something as well. And I think that's a fantastic example. It's a very quick example to say, well, it's going to benefit all the Commonwealth countries.
Yeah,
not just the countries in the name. And I think that's a really good instant defense to say why it's not racist.
No, I mean, I don't know where that question came from, racist. I don't think it is racist, because as you say, it's got...
Some people do say it is. Some of the arguments against it are that it's racist.
Is that because it excludes countries, or...?
Well, I think playing devil's advocate, I think people see it as white majority countries joining together, but people don't realize actually all our countries are really diverse.
Well, exactly, yeah.
We have massive diverse populations, and as he said, Britain's probably one of the most diverse countries in the world. So it's not all white countries coming together; it's diverse countries coming together to help each other and then help Commonwealth countries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, not everyone's going to be on board with it, are they? We've obviously spoken to 3 people who are campaigning for it, but not everybody's going to be on board, and you can't expect everybody to be on board. But
no, that's why I'm looking forward to being able to go out in the public and talk to people about it, and seeing what general public's views are, and being able to interview them and stuff.
Yeah, but it's exactly podcasts like this that gets people to find out exactly what it's all about and the sort of the perks of it.
Blowing our trumpet again.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And obviously, it's the more we get out there what it's all about, the more people I think will get on board. And it's the same with Marmite, isn't it? The more we explain to people what it is, the more people are going to like it.
Look, if you're secretly sponsored by it, can you please let us know?
What I think we should have on the website is a picture of me holding one, like a proper.
Yeah, no, I think that goes down wrong. There are other varieties of toast spreading foods.
Chocolate.
I like jam, to be honest. I prefer jam or chocolate spread.
What I do like better than Marmite actually is that chocolate spread that's got like the white chocolate and the dark chocolate all on one.
Yes, I know exactly what you're on about. That's delicious.
On toast.
You get the mix. I don't like dark chocolate. Dark chocolate would be wrong.
No.
Having milk and white chocolate on there is delicious. I know exactly what you're on about. I can't think what it's called though.
Double chocolate spread or something?
No, it's got an actual name. I can't think what it's called, but that is great. I used to when I was at school, when I was at primary school, I used to come in, and whatever was in my lunchbox, it was kind of a running game. Whatever was in my lunchbox would go into my sandwich. So I would have grapes in there. I would like spoon out the yogurt into it.
You call me a whiz?
Chocolate bars. It was just like a running joke, and You know, it was nice. It was nice.
I used to hate packed lunches at school because all the kids used to have all this posh bread. My mum always used to go to get the cheap bread that when he used to put the sandwich up, it would like fall apart and used to have holes in it.
Yeah, yeah, so break away. Yeah,
everyone else, their mum had got like nice cheese sticks, all this sort of stuff, lunchbox. I'd open mine and I'd have a packet of like ready salted crisps, like the cheap kind. Like like a cheap sandwich, and then I'd have like one of these like Savour chocolate bars. Someone else has got all these like little pork pies out, all this nice stuff, and I've got these like three things.
Price. It was like a chocolate bar that was. It wasn't even like a copy of a branded company. It was just proper basic. Yeah. It was like white packaging.
And it was the same with when we used to go on picnics. I have all these like nice cake. We'd have like cheap packet of crisps, and then we'd have like some. Yeah,
you've gone again. I don't know. I'm sure what you're saying is absolutely riveting, and it's upsetting that I can't hear it. But you were saying something about picnics.
Yeah. When I went, my mum would always like we would have the same thing on the picnic as we would have in our packed lunch, and all these other people would come out with these pork pies, all these cakes and things like that. So so we just sat there having our like cheap sandwiches, crisps, and chocolate bar. And then by the time we finish, everybody else is all feasting. So my dad takes care of the picnics now, and they're so much more better now.
Are they?
Yeah, a lot more pork pies. You get it all now. It's like you can look forward to a picnic, whereas before you'd be
chicken
like
skewers.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
the chicken and the skewers. Yeah.
And proper nice sandwiches.
Yeah, but little sausage rolls.
Yeah.
As we discussed last time, you know how to create those sausage rolls. You know how to roll them.
No. Blankets.
Oh, pigs and yes. It was. Yeah. Did you take the pigs and blankets with you?
That's for Christmas, isn't it?
You have to cook them, don't you, as well? You can't get them
what nuts has pigs and blankets when it's not Christmas? Or if you're having a roast, I mean, you wouldn't have it at a picnic, would you, surely?
I don't know. I was just thinking of finger food, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, we're rambling on.
Yeah, we are.
Your final thoughts. This video's gone on long enough. If anyone's still listening to it, you deserve this rambling talk now.
Yeah.
You deserve to. We've run out of stuff to talk about. We are just talking about picnics.
Some guy's probably watching this on his lunch break. Someone had fallen asleep and realised that he's missed like an hour of his shift.
Or someone's getting really hungry now. Like, oh gosh, I love a good picnic.
Yeah.
Love some finger food. Oh, that's what I love about New Year. Just quickly, like around New Year time, you have like their finger food, like those little you know those little triangles. It's kind of like a spring roll, but it's triangle.
Oh yeah.
Those. Essentially, just going to Iceland. There are other supermarkets, but this is the one that I would go to, and just get like those the finger food, like the little pizzas. Little pizzas. I love them. I'm not a fan of breadsticks.
What?
No, they're boring.
You can have them like drumsticks, can't you? And you can have them.
I like the the selection of dips. You get the Pentagon, the 5 dips, and no one has any except from the Thousand Island.
Oh, making me hungry now.
I know. Should we go to get some food?
Yeah.
Right. This has been the CANZUK. That's how I learned it's actually pronounced. CANZUK Movement Podcast. I've been your host, Daniel. We've got co-host Laurence. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for staying around this long.
You're still awake.
We'll see you again. You just cut over my ending. We'll see you again next time. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.